Hello guys, welcome to the video. You may be wondering what on earth is going on, but I'm here to tell you that I'll be filling in for Vhenshun today. I found a book he left in the studio, so I'm going to present it to you as I read his words. It reads, "Welcome everyone. As you all know, in the monster world, there are different monster families inside of the game the monster handlers have revealed. But there are many others that haven't been named or revealed yet. So today I'll be going over every monster and giving them proper families and family names." Well, that sounds very fun if I do say so myself. Oh, what's this?
P.S. I expected Eureka or Bemebeth to take over, but I knew in advance that Gobblegord would come, so if it is you, read this. This video is a 500 sub special, so don't mess this up and don't start yapping about your random journeys. I'm counting on you.
Well, that was surprising. I should be mad, but he actually trusts me to do a good job, so I'll let it slide. Alright then, let's get started. For the first family, we'll be using Noggin as our base monster to give an idea of what monsters could go along with it. After some little to no thought, I'd narrowed down the monsters to a group of 3. It's pretty obvious, but I'll let you guys guess. If you guessed T-Rox and Chorister, you are correct. Now choosing the monsters was easy, but making the name was so difficult. So difficult, in fact, that I had to look up rock puns to get an idea of different rock names.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What?
After my brilliant thinking skills, I decided to give them the name the Pterorax. The name speaks for itself, so I think it's perfect. Now onto Mehmet, our next base monster for this family. Now, the key points I can grab from Mehmet is that he has a hairy body, so other monsters should fit in that category while also looking like some sort of skinwalker and relating to the cold element. The monsters I chose for this one are Maw, Deej, and Wink. This is because they have a similar relationship in their visual features with some sort of hairy creature that isn't tied to any animal. It was hard to get any leads on the name, but I came up with one called the Firstlies. I added an extra R because since it's related to the cold element and gives a feeling of shivers, it would add more flair in the name. Now, Potbelly was very broad because its design can branch out to a lot of different monsters. Anyways, I'll spare you the trouble and just show them here. This should be easy, so I'll come back with a family name. Now for Cana, a fire single must go with the fire quint, Candelabra. They fit really well because their design is heavily based around fire and their rare counterparts both match each other. So I came up with the name, the Ignesperas, because they related to wisdom and history of the fire element. I'd say it has a nice ring to it, if I do say so myself. Drumpler looks very complicated, so I have to look at the key points about him. He has weird-looking ears and 2 goat-like feet. So after looking at everyone's feet, I came across Yule, who has the same features as Drumpler. After some thought, I came up with the name the Capri Cloves. Capri means goat in Latin, and cloves is related to the hooves they have on their feet, so that's how I came up with it. Frog was very easy, so I'll let you guys guess. If you said Brump, then you are correct. Although it has furcorn's eggs on its head, it has more frog features like the webbed feet and tadpole tail. So the family will be called the Ribbity, because if I activate my nerd skills, frog families in real life have this word at the end of every name. For Pango, I grabbed the unique feature of his beak to be my key point of figuring out what monsters could go with him. The two monsters I found were Glacier and Tuskski, who both have snow around or on them like Pango. This was by far the most annoying to come up with, but I settled for the Frostbergs. Now for Cybop, it has been revealed in Gelbely's bio that Cybop is a really huge fan towards him for some reason that I can't understand because he is so mid.
Actually, what Gobbly-Good meant to say is that our glorious king is amazing, and our family should be called the Skybups because we rock.
For Stog, I used his prehistoric features to find a match with Incisor, who both resemble like some sort of dinosaur. So I named them the Canny Rex to acknowledge their sharp teeth. Now we come across our first unnamed duo that's been revealed by the monster handlers, so I have to think harder on this one. I decided to use their Hooga Chews as my guide for making the names, as well as their flowery appearance. Their sound gives kind of an ancient or tribal vibe, so I decided to give them the name, the Blumechus. Now this family was a very simple one because I just had to find more feathered monsters that fit the aesthetic. I'd say that since Owl goes on Fire Oasis and looks kind of goofy, why not bring the two goated goobers, Mimic and me? And I, personally, would like to name ourselves the Great... Oh, looks like we got another message from Vhenshun. It reads, "Dear Gobbly-Gourd, before you name yourself you are with Owl and Mimic, and your family name will be called the Crocodoodles, because each of you are unique in a funny and special way. Sometimes grand names aren't what makes a family special, it's the thought that comes from the heart. If he thinks I'm dumb enough to be swayed by some corny message, he's wrong, because I'm gonna..." For Fangler, I could not relate him with any fish-type creatures because it has been confirmed a certain monster is not related to him, so I had to look at his other features. His microphone gives me studio-type vibes, so I was able to single out quite a few monsters here. Since recording studios give a chill vibe, I will name this family the Mellowtones. Now, Boscus is a very peculiar fellow. He brings a lot of features that could fit in an oxen family, so I decided to look into the ox-type monsters, Flum Ox and Bisonorus. Coming up with a name was just as difficult as the plant family that I had to dive in the depths of the internet to come up with Bobrox. Pummel has a unique relation with Anglo in their rare form, as they are made up with some sort of substance deep in the ocean. They could have been with Fangler, but I had to make them separate as Anglo's bio is tied to Pummel. Since Pummel and Anglo both live in the Monstriana trenches, I decided to name them the Pirangulas, because they remind me of a Dracula fish mixed with some piranha features. Before we move on, I just want to say that every rare and epic wubbox should go together since they're just an evolved version of the common. For Sponge, I just had to look at the obvious. He is a fat guy who likes blowing air. So I thought to myself, who else is fat and likes airy things? Then I came across Bloat and Palm Ping, who both use their cheeks to play sounds, so I think they are a perfect match. I think a cool name for them will be the Hufflepuffs. Kongol reminded me of those hermit crabs with the long eye stalks, so I decided to look for the other crab-like monsters, Zigurab and Dromedary. A name I came up with is the Crustace Clan. Scups was really difficult as it matched with no other monster and was just there being a nuisance to me. So I looked at some people's opinion, and out of all of them, these two were the most reasonable option. Although it sounds good, I just think that there is something that separates him from the rest. So I'll let you guys decide in the comments of a family Scups could go in. But for now, his solo family is called the Suctionaires. I found Fugal and Socks a pretty good duo because they both play a brass instrument and their features are similar. And I think a fitting name would be the Brazzle Dazzles. Up next we have Waddle, and when I look at this abomination, it reminds me of bunnies, which brings Hippity Hop as a good match. With some help, I was able to come up with the Budleys. For Ent Brat, the obvious choice was to put him with Yalnut. This is because they're both a master at screaming at the top of their lungs, but only one person actually sounds good. Riff was pretty easy. Since he is a rock enjoyer, all I had to do was gather the other monsters that resemble the music genre, which were Piplash, Timpa, and Atmos. I decided to go on a band name approach and came up with the Overdrive Syndicate. For Shellbeat, I used his shell to match up with Scargo and Tort. It took a bit of thinking, but I came up with the Cartonels. I know it's strange, but I had no other names in mind, so I went with this. Tring is a monster who really loves his triangle, so I brought Syncopite along with him, because they both have crystalline features and kind of have a jewelry design. So I decided with the Blinganites. I put Krilby with Flute Fly because they both play a similar instrument, and overall I would say they complement each other so well. So I decided to go with the Piccolos. The next family consists of Tiara and Bridget. Now you may be wondering, how on earth does this monstrosity go with Tiara? Well, the reason I put them together is because they both play two similar instruments, the marimba and the kalimba. So I came up with the Digitones because of the many digits they have on their heads. For Floris, I just grabbed all the similar luminescent monsters, which were Gob, Fiddlement, and Pluckbill. The easiest name I could come up with without thinking too hard was the Floorsouls. For their mind, I grouped the monsters based on their abilities and features that suited with him. The monsters I got were Yuggler, Periscorp, Deja Jin, and Plixie. I decided to go with something more supernatural, and I came up with the Psychorias. For Bulbo, I decided to make a spider family for him because he obviously looks like a spider. So here are the monsters I picked. I also decided to go with an original yet fitting name for them, so I'll let you guess what it is. Puppet was a very fun one to create because I doubt you guys would even guess what I've picked, but I decided that Flask should be their companion. You're probably confused, so let me explain. Puppet and Flask are both inanimate objects that have a unique trait that makes them invulnerable in their bio. After some thought, I decided to name them the Thingadinks to match their unique nature. Squat looks like a mushroom, so I grouped it up with these monsters. As you can see, their designs are all based on mushrooms, so I decided to name them the Fungi Folk. Whimsies was a very interesting monster to cover on, but after some thought, I chose Nightmare as a duo for this family. You may be wondering why I thought of this, but let me explain. If you look at Whimsies as a whole, you can notice that under their charming faces, they're actually hiding their true faces under the balloons, as we can see the rope. Judging by their hideous feet, this could mean that their true selves could be somewhat hideous or messed up like Nightmare. And if we read Nightmare's bio, a key point is that he was a mishmash of multiple ideas. If we correlate this to the Whimsies, their different feet shape and size is all give a conclusion that they could have been a mishmash of multiple ideas that weren't joined together, unlike Nightmare. So they wore a balloon suit to cover their imperfectness, which made them happy. So basically, these two wild oddballs share a family because of their creepy traits. Denchas felt like an obvious choice to put them with the other bone monsters, but I decided not to because I feel like their energy matched more with Teeter Totter. After all, their synthetic partnership of Denchas having a two-split personality is the same for Teeter Totter. A fitting name for these pairs would be the Rosklins. For Hollow, I used his wooden exterior to match with Knucklehead. I think they fit together pretty well, so I named them the Knuckalots. Rorik gives kind of a tribal vibe, so obviously I couldn't leave Enchantling and Voodoo out of this. I honestly don't know why Voodoo is an ethereal, but anyway, I named this trio the Enchanteers. This goated duo is self-explanatory, so I'll skip the details, but it took a bit of thinking until I decided to make it simple and call them the Bleatkins. Clavy Nat was pretty hard, but I grouped him up with the other bug monsters like Zinth and Scaratter. I had a hard time with this one because Clavy Nat had some relations with both monsters, but those monsters didn't have one with another. Zinth has a glowing bulbous part like Clavy Nat's instrument, but Scaratter doesn't. Scaratter has plant-like features and a similar sound to Clavy Nat, but not a bulbous part like Zinth, which is why my mind was tied between the two. So I decided to just group all three and name them the Bugglebutts. Let me know if you guys agree with this trio in the comments. Now for the rest of the bone monsters, I decided to group all of them together. I came up with the Rattlejams, and I think it suits their nature pretty well. Larvalus reminded me of Gloptic because it has one eye, and judging by the sound, they also play a similar instrument. I decided to use the word arpeggio and modify it to make this family called the Harpegulas. I think we all know what monster fits with Platy. I'm not very good at Scottish names, but I came up with the McJiggins. For Plinkachu, although the wiki says it's related to this jokester, I decided to have a look at their claim to see if it's right.
Are you serious right now, bro?
And to my surprise, their evidence was really weak, so I will not be following their claim. Instead, I decided to grab Carolong and Dragon because they all have long tails and carry trinkets of some sort. I decided to awake the French inside of me and came up with the Monbijous. Grumpire, Kazulian, and Zert have the same smelly aura around them, and I'd say they have a lot more in common, so I put all of them together. I also like how all of them have the shadow element, which makes these three a good pick. A name that came to mind was the Grumpy Grouts, and I'd say it fits their vibe pretty well. Some things I could grab from Rebro is that he has a mechanical body that his brain sits on, and he's really smart. The first monster that came to mind was Vhenshun, who also has a mechanical structure, and his craftiness matches with Rebro's creativity. I'd say that this mech duo goes really well. For my next family, I decided to put Geode and Ogler together because I think that they have a lot in common. Just looking at their design and animations really captivate that ethereal aspect. So I named them the Astriels. Monculus is a monster that's really tied to Ethereal Island, so I chose Nebulob as a perfect fit for him. This is because whenever I look at Monculus, I think of spirits and life, and Nebulob brings that similar vibe. Coming up with a name was pure torture, so with the help of my friend we decided on the Gooby Suits. I think you guys get the gist of why Meebkin and Bemebeth are together. I had trouble choosing between two different names, so I put a poll to see what your opinions were, and the winner was the Meeblers, so I decided on that. The next one was an already confirmed family by the monster handlers, and it took a while to create a name because of their weirdness. It was rather difficult, so I kept it simple and went with the Zookers. For some odd reason, I grouped Blairet and Smoochel together. I don't know if it's their sound or design that drew my attention towards them, but I feel like it's a good duo. When I look at Rismuth, it reminds me of a disco party because of his sounds, so I put him with Pixelotl and Astropod. They all have bright, vibrant colors and 8-bit sounds, so I named them the Rhythmatics. Ugrity and Schlepp both look disgusting and have that hideous feature on their mouths, so they were definitely a perfect pair. It took a while to come up with a name, but I decided on the Spotterflies. Globe and Whizbang have been confirmed to be a family, so although Globe isn't a monster, this is the one time I'll make an exception. I chose the Luma Globes since Whizbang used to be one. For Jamboree, I decided to pull Ziggurat out of his old family and put him here because he's the only monster that looks like cake. And since they each had many layers, I decided to go with the tier toppers. For Yostrich, I noticed that the yodels and screams of this bird would fit well with Screamu. And because of their lovely vocal cords, I named them this wonderful name that I can't pronounce, so my future self will show you the pronunciation. Now, after my past reasonings with this monster, it would be well suited with Harrianet alongside its dream mythical. They all give a similar scare factor, so you can really see the matches with all of them. I grabbed inspiration from their odd design and behaviors and came up with the Eccentrics. You can probably see what I did there, but I really like this name. I think Nerve and Flock was a pretty easy one to group since they both stretch some part of their face to make music. The best I could come up with was the Aquatic. Bookworm, Fleechworm, and Bonkers all look like worms, so they are in a group. I used the last end of Bookworm's name for inspiration and came up with the Wriggle Worms. Poke and Crepuscule don't look normal, so at least they have some things in common. Their designs are very odd and abnormal that I gave them the name the Odd Anomals. I don't know why I chose Drumroll and Zucker as a pair, but it just felt right to me, so I took the Fulkers as their name. And finally, the last family consists of the two Celestials, Galvana and Vamp. For this pair, I actually took inspiration from a promotion I saw earlier, and it inspired me to come up with the Wizards. Now it's time for the miscellaneous monsters that I couldn't group with anyone, which were the Phosphorin Phlox and Catalyst. I feel like these monsters were too unique and special to match with anyone else, so that's why I decided on this. But what do you think? If you have any suggestions on them, let me know in the comments. Well, this video was such a doozy, but I had some fun making this. I hope this didn't take too long to make, but it's amazing to see you guys being here until the end, and I can't thank you enough. I'm planning to make a shorter video reviewing this one with no explanation, so it'll be easier to watch. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'd like to know your thoughts on these, and I'll see you in the next one.